Today we are joined by Jonathan Sweet, retired U.S. Army colonel and military intelligence officer with 30 years of service. Colonel Sweet, welcome to our studio.
Thanks for having me back on, Sofia.
President Zelensky says Russia's operation in Sumy region has failed, with heavy losses forcing them to shift troops elsewhere. How do you assess the situation on the front line now?
Yeah, it's the whole summer, at least up till now, has been practically a failure from a large part. It was a counteroffensive, a large counteroffensive. I believe the casualties that the Ukraine Ministry of Defense has presented are upwards to over 200,000 for the counteroffensive. So the Ukrainian military continues to do an excellent job in defending their territory. Now they have given some terrain, they give some space in order to do that. But the amount of casualties that they're inflicting upon the Russian military would seem unsustainable, but it doesn't seem to affect Putin's desire to continue the attack.
At the same time, we see that Ukraine's long-range drones have struck deep inside Russia, just in recent days hitting the Gazprom Salavat refinery 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. How effective are such attacks, and how much pressure they actually put on Russia's war machine?
Well, as we've seen, it's been very effective. In effect, disrupting over 25% of Russia's ability to refine their product. So getting that onto the market right now is difficult for them, and they're losing literally billions of dollars in the process, not being able to store the oil or to refine it. So from that perspective, Ukraine continues to do what Ukraine does best, and that is fire long-range rockets. It's not just rockets. I mean, you said drones, but they've also refined, if you recall, the Flamingo missile that they're using for deep strikes, and they also have done some changes to the Neptune missile that enable them to do deep strikes. And oh, by the way, Special Operations Forces, again, have struck much deeper into Russia, as we see a Russian base on the Pacific coast that was attacked, that housed the 155th Marine Unit from of the Russian military, that they were able to successfully attack.
Could this strategy of targeting refineries push dictator Putin toward negotiations, at least in the long run?
Yeah, so his issues now with that is he has to turn to his, if you will, allies. So he's turned to China, he's turned to India, he's turned to Iran and North Korea to purchase fuel, to purchase liquid natural gas. So that is forcing his hand to be dependent upon others. And once you get to that state of dependency, you have issues internally. So Ukraine, we can expect to continue to put the pressure on to continue to target. Over the last 45 days, I believe, they've been very successful in hitting those targets, but they've also been exceptionally skillful in taking out the air defense networks, which enables those drones and those missiles to do those deep strikes. So it's a win-win for Ukraine.
Talking about Russia's oil and possible sanctions from the West, what's your take on the Trump's position when he's saying that will put pressure and tough sanctions only if all NATO member states will cut off and stop the buying Russian oil?
Yeah, that's I understand the position from one perspective. Right now, you have two NATO countries, Hungary and Slovakia, who continue to purchase cheap energy in the form of oil and liquid natural gas from Russia. So he's trying to lean in on NATO to get that to stop. But at the same time, he's also been unwilling to put sanctions on Russia. That sanctions package has been in place. When I say package, the bill that Senator Lindsey Graham put together, he has 85 plus votes in the Senate right now. They could pass the bill today, but the president has asked them not to. What they need to do, at least in my opinion, is they need to pass the bill, put it on the president's desk, and make him make a decision. Because the backbreaker right now, I believe, and I think many other analysts and economists believe, the backbreaker right now is that particular sanctions bill, which could put Russia over the edge as far as financial stability, as far as bringing in revenue, as far as continuing their war against Ukraine. So why we're waiting, I don't understand, but obviously there's a bigger picture going on in the White House that they haven't shared with us.
Meanwhile, Russia and Belarus wrapped up their West or Zapad 2025 military exercises. What's your assessment on the drills and their impact on NATO security?
Well, let's understand the Zapad exercise is a recurring exercise, so it's not like it was something that's just put together in order to demonstrate some capability. Nonetheless, they did demonstrate capability. They demonstrated interoperability between the two militaries, the Russian military and the Belarusian military, though it was significantly smaller than Zapad 2021, where they had over 200,000 troops participating. On this go-around, they had 30,000 troops. They did demonstrate some capabilities as far as placements of missile systems, and static displays of those missile systems, the Orshik and Iskander missiles that they put on static display. And they did some limited live fire exercises to demonstrate that they could hit targets, but it's all in a controlled environment, no one's shooting back. Okay, and that's the difference maker. Let's also understand that that particular exercise, I don't believe that Russia got anything out of it. I think Lukashenko got more out of it. Lukashenko is scared to death of Poland, and he's trying to influence Poland. Okay, trying to get them to not attack him, which is why he went to Putin last year and asked to be able to store tactical nuclear weapons in Minsk, which is why he's asked for this static display, which is why Russia has troops again in Poland, though not a big footprint, but they have troops there. This is all about satisfying Lukashenko. I don't think Russia got anything out of it.
Talking about this Russian drone flying over Poland, do you think it was accidental or not?
Incidental, no. It was deliberate. And let's be serious. Over the course of the past 2 years, missiles and drones have impacted in Poland. Okay, and they've overlooked it because they've landed in urban areas and they didn't hurt anybody or kill anybody. They saw it as accidents where, weapon systems, got desynced and they lost control of the weapons. This is 19 drones that crossed into Polish airspace. 5 of those 19 drones went to a specific NATO air base in southern Poland. Okay, an air base that's used to move weapons and a cargo in and out of Ukraine. So this was deliberate. And I would say it was probably used for targeting data, but also to test the air defense systems of NATO.
Some analysts, especially some writers from newspaper Bild, suggest Putin might keep 30,000 troops in Belarus as a permanent threat after this Zapad 2025 drills, launch an attack from the north, or use this build up to strike elsewhere. Do you agree with this assessment and these three scenarios?
Yeah, I doubt he's going to leave 30,000 troops in Belarus. He only has 2,000 there now, at least from what I've read in reports that actually participate in the exercise. Plus, he can't afford to put 30,000 troops somewhere other than Ukraine right now, or maybe along the Finnish border, which is where they're actually mobilizing forces. But let's remember, the forces that they're mobilizing are conscripts. They're not veteran soldiers. They're 18-year-olds in uniforms. In some cases, they're 65-year-olds in uniforms. But the bottom line is they're not trained soldiers, so they're being put in military posts for purposes of demonstration, not necessary purposes of capability. I don't believe that Russia has any intent on threatening Poland, okay? The Suwalki Gap is usually the one scenario everyone's concerned about, that landmass between Kaliningrad and Belarus that connects the Baltic states to Eastern Europe. That is a threat. That's always been a threat. But let's remember that Germany committed a tank brigade to Lithuania that's presently there now, and there's 10,000 soldiers right now that are stationed in Poland. So it would be more than attacking Poland or the gap, it would be confronting NATO directly.
We also learned from news reports that Dmitry Kozak, a close Putin ally and a long-time advocate for negotiations with Ukraine, has resigned. What does this tell us about Putin's inner circle? Is he pushing away anyone who questions the war?
Yeah, I think resign is probably the wrong word. He was probably asked to leave or fired. It was better than the alternative, which was an open window or a glass of tea, right? No, he's always been one, I think, at least from my readings, that has encouraged a negotiated settlement. I think all this proves, shows the West is that Putin's not interested in negotiated settlement. He said so before. It's all Ukraine, okay? It's all about the capitulation of Ukraine. His foreign minister has Lavrov was once again, for the most part, said the exact same thing. So until the West recognizes what exactly Russia's end state is, we're not going to get anywhere. The end state is the capitulation of all of Ukraine, not part of Ukraine, all of Ukraine.
I think maybe at least that part of Europe kind of recognize that Putin wants to continue the war, wants to have Ukraine fully occupied and have this geopolitical influence in the region. But I don't think that the administration in the White House kind of change the mind, change their ideas and perception of what really Putin wants. So do you think we can expect some changes in the future in this regard?
I think the 19 drones that invaded the airspace, and again, it wasn't just invading the airspace, it was deep within in Poland. I think that that set off a lot of red flags in NATO itself, right? Because we've seen the response, which is, Poland deploying 40,000 forces along the border. We've seen French aircraft now being diverted to Poland to reinforce the Eastern Century air patrols. We're seeing the reinforcing, if you will, of NATO troops in that area. So I think it's raised the flag for a lot of people. But I still think within the White House, they're looking for an off-ramp, and they're trying to give Putin an off-ramp. And that off-ramp was in the form of economic incentives. But Putin now has turned to China for economic incentives. So I think that door's shut too. Okay, so at the end of the day, I think both the United States and NATO have to realize that the end state for Russia right now is Ukraine, and the wider, if you will, end state or goal, and Putin has said this himself, is to reestablish the Soviet Union. That begins with the Baltic states and probably will work its way down through Poland. So it's a dangerous time, and again, giving Putin more incentives to come to the negotiation table hasn't worked. So what he's going to have to be is incentivized either through strong economic sanctions or through getting Ukraine those military hardware and intelligence they need to defeat Russia in Ukraine. So we'll see.
And finally, we know that large-scale NATO drills are underway in Estonia and in Poland right now, involving Abrams tanks, F-35s, and other military techniques. And what message does NATO want to send on the eastern flank?
It's a counter to the supply exercise, but in this case, it's showing more force and more capability. And the message being sent to Belarus and Russia is that conventionally, you will not win in the Baltics. We will defeat you. Okay, if you attack, we will defeat and destroy you. And that's the message that's being sent. And you see the modern weapons, right? The Abrams, the Leopards, the F-35s, the Rafales from France. Those are all modern weapon systems. And this is an interoperable NATO force that has trained for this event. It's not like they're putting a plan together. That plan has been together for years, and that plan has been rehearsed for years. When I was at U.S. European Command, I participated in those exercises. So it's clearly a demonstration of force, not a show of force, a demonstration of force of what will happen if they come across the border.
Do you think now Russia, Putin, Belarus is taking into account these drills and following it very closely?
You made reference earlier to Russia possibly leaving stay-behind forces there. Stay-behind forces, I don't believe, are to protect Belarus from Poland. I think those stay-behind forces are to protect the Lukashenko regime from an internal strife or some type of, if you will, revolution or revolt. Lukashenko's had problems for years, and he's been propped up by the Putin government. So it's worth keeping an eye on, and we will, obviously, because our Baltic partners, to include Finland and Sweden, are NATO members and very important to the alliance.
With Russian drones crossing into NATO and Romania, should NATO adjust its strategy and readiness for a possible conflict with Moscow, taking into account the situation with Russian drones?
Right. Look, Russia's gonna test the borders. Okay. In this case, they tested the Romanian borders, and they had a drone fly over Ukraine or Romanian terrain for upwards to 50 minutes. And the disappointment is that Romania didn't shoot it down for fear of a Russian reprisal. But it's like it's hard to understand that point when that Russian drone is flying over your country while you do not shoot that aircraft down. If you're afraid of Russian reprisal, what are you going to do when it is an actual attack? I think the message has to be sent: you will not fly over NATO terrain. And those were, in this case, Romanian aircraft. They weren't necessarily NATO aircraft. I believe if they were NATO aircraft, they would have shot that drone down. But the Romanian president has got to do some soul searching on what he is going to do to defend his country. And it can't be, I'm afraid to start a war, or, I'm afraid to escalate something when it's over his terrain. So it's Russia's going to continue probing, and don't think they're going to stop at Romania. Okay, they're going to look at Bulgaria. They're going to look at Hungary. They're going to look at other countries along that border that they think they may be able to find air corridors.
And in this scenario, what should NATO do to prevent Russian attacks and basically to save its territory, to show the clear message that NATO will not allow Russia to continue the war and go beyond the borders of Ukraine, go beyond this eastern flank and move to the west?
Sure. The first thing they have to do is establish presence. And they've established presence, obviously, in Poland and in the Baltic states, but they need to establish presence also in Romania. And Romania does have training facilities in which NATO forces train. The second thing is the establishment of the NATO air police. And they have the Eastern Sentry air patrols, but they also have air patrols that are flying over Romania also. But again, that's all about presence. That's letting them know that we're here. But then, putting boots on the ground. And when I say boots on the ground, in this case, I mean integrated air defense systems. I'm meaning deep strike weapon systems. Okay. You talk about ATACMS and other type of weapon systems that Russia can physically see that they're there and that they can respond. Okay. The other piece, obviously, is with those air patrols, but those air patrols have to be more than air to air. They also need to be equipped with Storm Shadow, Scalp, and Taurus type of missiles in order to do precision deep strike against Russia. Russia needs to understand there will be a cost, that they will pay if they intrude into NATO. And it begins with presence.
Colonel Sweet, thank you for your insights and for being with us today.
Thanks for having me back on the show, Sofia.